Okay, introducing my next special guest on my show now. On this segment, I'm joined by a band member from a group, a collective called the Fugitives, and it's Brendan joining me on today's show. Welcome to my show, Brendan. Nice to have you with me today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
That's fine, no worries. Just here today to talk about one of your singles and leading up to your new album. So you're part of a collective called the Fugitives. Where are you situated in the world?
Fugitives are from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada.
Lovely. Heard so much about the place. I've never been, but I've seen the pictures and it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's a very stunning place for sure. It has its drawbacks once you live there, like every place, but it is for sure amongst the more beautiful cities in the world.
And being a musician, does your surroundings and habitat influence your songwriting and creativity in a way?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I think in this album more than any other album, because this album is kind of climate crisis focused. And uh, the reason we wrote about that is not because we are super environmentalists or anything, but just that we felt like it would be kind of dishonest to talk about anything else. Because where we live, there's wildfires every summer. There's a lot of talk, 'cause it's a coastal city. There's a lot of talk about rising sea levels. So it just it feels like it's impossible to talk around, when you live in a place like that.
Yeah, understood. And we'll come back to, might come to that shortly. From the top, how long have the Fugitives been performing together for?
We've been around since 2005, so we started out pretty young as a bunch of 25-year-olds, and now we are very different. Everyone's like a parent and 44, 45-ish.
And have you found that as the years go by, your sound has matured in a way like everyone, every musician?
Yeah, for sure. It's very different now than when it began. It was very like kind of we all came out of like a literary scene in the early 2000s, so it was a lot of like kind of beat poetry inspired kind of things. And now it's more like a modern folk feel with like more traditional instrumentation,
Hmm.
banjo, violin, guitar, balalaika, stuff like that. Yeah.
Great. And I just had in my notes describing your sounds on this album as folks roots based.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's because it's such a broad thing. We just say based because you can take, even though those instruments are traditional, you can take them in a lot of different directions. So we like to think that we, sound pretty modern, even though we're playing pretty old
Yeah.
instruments.
So the bass just gives you a bit more leeway uh, to try and
Yeah,
stop
that's
yourself
right.
being genrealized in a way.
Exactly. You
Is that
can,
such
well,
a word?
if a jazz festival calls you up and says, "Do you want to play?" You're like, "Yeah, we're only folk based." So yeah, exactly.
Cool. So just looking at your new album coming out or has been released, No Help Coming. So just looking at the song, the album title, No Help Coming, might just have a slightly sounding precarious album title for the listener.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be actually positive, but I understand because it does sound very sinister when you put no help coming on an album cover. But I think it's more just this idea that there's no one coming to help us with whatever precarious position we put ourselves in on the planet, that we've got to figure it out ourselves. So it's actually, we've looked at it as kind of an upbeat thing, like more of a galvanizing call to arms more than a downbeat, just kind of like the album, which is pretty, the album's pretty uplifting sounding. It's not like a downer.
Of course, just to flip side that question, I have in my notes the album's about resolve. Could it be about reconciliation, finding a solution?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge, complex problem. We didn't want to be like, okay, we'll just do these seven things. But we did in the album. I think there's a lot of songs that are about, kind of personal and communal transformation of people. So I think we looked at it that way. Yeah, for sure. Reconciliation would definitely be one of the themes of the album.
And how many tracks are on this album? No Help Coming.
Yeah. Good question, actually. I don't even know because there's so many small little tracks
Hmm.
too. I think there's 14.
14. Yeah, about the small tracks as well, because they're only about 30 seconds in. They're kind of like a prologue to the album track it's trying to lead up to.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to really capture, like, most of those are captured like live off the floor, like live in the studio, just the four of us. We really wanted to capture that kind of energy of the four of us singing. So We did a lot of those, like 20 or 30 in the studio, and we just cut a few together for the album.
Mm.
And, it just makes it a nice little more cohesive to listen to. I'm not sure how many people actually sit down and go track 1 to track 14 anymore, but that's how we listen to albums. And so we just thought if someone was going to listen to it like that, give them a little bit of a story in there.
It's a good old-fashioned way, isn't it? Track 1 to 14. That's what I do like about CDs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, your lead single, Edge of the Sea, would you say that's one of your standout tracks on this album?
Yeah, I mean, it's also the first one we wrote. The chorus is "Where's my love" and all of this, which I think is kind of the main question of the album, which is, you're worried about all this kind of almost abstract things with like, the planet, what will happen to, the future generations and stuff. But really, our focus was, like a lot of people, was just like, what is the effect on my family and my friends and my immediate circle, and you know the next generation down. So we were really trying to center it
Mm,
in a more personal level. It's a pretty
mm.
personal album. Yeah.
I understand. And Advice, that is one of the longest tracks on the record. That's nearly 5 minutes in length. That's a bit of a masterpiece.
Oh, thanks. Masterpieces. Yeah, we'll take it.
And Dead Money as well. Dead Money. Can you just tell me a little bit about that track title,
Yeah.
album track?
Dead Money is about I think it's about, I say I think because I wrote the lyrics, but once you're collaborating with a bunch of people, sometimes the shift of it gets changed, especially the tenor of the song. I think I wrote it actually as a pretty downbeat one, and it ended up being kind of like a bluegrassy feel to it. But it's about uh, I mean, the chorus is about grieving dead money. So I think I came across this idea of I was reading a lot about cultures where the money is now extinct, like you can't use the money. So it's called dead money. And I was thinking that's really what all money ends up being. And it's not that I don't want money in my life or anything, but it just kind of like it's just centered around that theme of like the transience of like you're searching for this, for like a step up all the time, but really in the long run of things, it's going to be gone like everything else.
Yeah, so I'm with you. And on this album, will there be any music videos you shoot into accompany maybe the single releases?
Yeah, for sure. There's music videos coming for Story of Our Times, Edge of the Sea, Might Just Rain Like This for Days, and Wing and a Prayer.
Cool. And just throwing it back a bit, your single "Where Do We Go From Here" is doing reasonably well on the Spotify listening numbers, 38K and rising on this day. What's that song about?
So that's from our previous album. It's from the album called Trench Songs, which is it's all World War One soldier lyrics that we took and we made into music. So it might be a particular interest to listeners in Britain because it's World War One. Canada fought under Britain during that time. So it was part of a larger project about kind of unearthing stories from World War One. But it was a really beautiful project because we got to make new music to these words that we kept of, and they weren't like patriotic songs. We look at it as basically as protest songs from World War One that were written by soldiers.
Hmm. So people here in Europe definitely can relate to that song in a way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And it might just rain like this for days. It sounds like our great British weather, that track you did.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So we've been to Britain a couple times, and we share an affinity, not maybe not an affinity or a lack of affinity for the rain because Vancouver is also a rainforest. So I do remember, despite living in Vancouver, my rainiest time of my life was we were stuck in the Lake District. Not stuck. It's beautiful, but we were there for 10 days, and it didn't stop raining. Like it was the most rain I'd ever seen in my life. So we also have felt that British weather. Yeah.
And are you a self-released artists or are you signed or in a way signed
No, our
artist?
album our album is out on Fallen Tree Records, which is a Canadian album, but it's also out internationally through them. They have for distribution wherever there's music.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And who have been your influences and inspirations over the years and the decades?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hey, it's always shifting. Right now, I'm really into Bonnie Light Horseman. And I'm also really into old like 70s funk because I have a 6 month old and she really likes funk and disco. So I have this really weird like Spotify now in my house thinks that I like either, you know, really downbeat folk or really upbeat disco and nothing in between. So I get a lot of weird recommendations.
Brilliant. I like that track that I think it was a 70s hit, Play That Funky Music. That's a
Yeah,
classic, isn't it?
great,
Amazing.
great track. I mean, what's amazing about that era is the drums are so great, you know, they're just they sound amazing and they're yeah, I mean they're sampled like all the time now today, but it's just yeah, it's a great era for drums.
Mhm. Cool. Moving on to my next question. People who listen to your music also listen to Adrian Glynn, Logan and Nathan, Mark Berube, and the Patriotic Few. Have you heard of them artists before?
Yeah, so Adrian's in our band, so they and he also has a solo album, so that's probably why the crossover. Also, Mark Berube, he is a former fugitive, like way back in the day, and he now is an artist who lives in Berlin, and so he has a most recent band called Cliffs, and so there's also some overlap there because people make the connection between our two bands. Yeah, and he's still a good friend, so we
Oh,
get to tour with him sometimes.
that's good. Hitting the road soon as well, here over here, the UK. Thursday, the 27th of June, which isn't too far away. You start off in Bury, which is kind of like Manchester way, at the
Yeah,
Met. And then you got dates in Shrewsbury, nice part of the world, which is 4th of July, Independence Day. Shrewsbury St Mary's Church, and then you're in my neck of the woods, so the Kitchen Garden Cafe in Birmingham on 7th of
yeah,
July. And you've got many other
yeah.
dates along with that as well.
Yes, and we've heard so much about the kitchen garden. Like it's such a staple from international artists, and so we've heard a lot about this room and have never played it. So I'm really excited for the Birmingham gig. Can't wait to see this venue because it is lauded. We've heard about it even over here. Yeah,
Well, I'm going to make an effort to try and catch you play live at that event.
yeah, that'd be
So
wonderful.
7th of July. I was hoping for the Shrewsbury, but my last train home isn't late enough, so it'd be Birmingham. Birmingham would be the best one. But all your dates as well. Do you have a website where people can just like check your concert dates, tour dates?
Yeah, everyone can grab tour dates and tickets at fugitives.ca or fugitives.ca/shows. They're all there, and ticket links are for every show are also there.
Brill. And you mentioned your website, and are you on YouTube, streaming platforms? And do you have like a newsletter or an emailing list?
Yeah, you can sign up for the email list also at our website, and we're on everywhere you stream. All you have to do is put in the Fugitives, and sometimes you might get a '60s band from uh, that plays different kind of music. But I think we're usually near the top if you search the
Yeah.
Fugitives.
Brilliant. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for joining me today and answering my questions. It's been really a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for your contribution on today's show. So my name's Danny, son here in England, and I'm part of the syndicated podcasts here your in the UK. Yeah, England, UK.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Brill. Thank you.